is the Bristol Flyers Podcast.
Hello, welcome back to this week's episode of the Bristol Flyers Podcast. I am Joel Osborne. He is Sam Hardy, as always. Sam, how's it going?
Going well, thanks, my man. I got some big news, actually. We're moving house, sadly. Been in the same place for 10 years, but we're moving finally to LA. So... We are Long Ashton.
Well, many congratulations on the move.
Mate.
When's the big day when you move in?
We're trying to work that one out still, but I think it's going to be next Friday, so that's going to be stressful, fun times for everyone. How are you, mate? What's going on in your life?
Yeah, all good. Obviously, last night we are on the come down from last night's Man City game here at Ashton Gate. 25,000 fans here in attendance. Massive game on the cards. FA Cup. 5th round, and we lose 3-0 to Man City.
Yeah, but don't say it like that, because I think we battled really well. We were in it for ages. It was 1-0 in 7 minutes, but then after that it was 1-0 for most of the rest of the game. The boys fought hard. Alex Scott is unbelievable. But yeah, shame, 3-0. KDB, you can't beat that man. He's unbelievable, isn't he?
Yeah, atmosphere was really good, wasn't it? The scarves on every seat, waving them around when the players came out. Really good atmosphere. It was a competitive game. Obviously, they scored early on. The first half super competitive, and then at the end they just punched two home, didn't they?
Annoyingly, there's an own goal which they've given to Foden, but I think it was going wide, and I think Zach Viner just knocked it in. But that's all right. He was trying to defend when he's doing his job.
Yeah. Well, they move on. Obviously, big game for them now. Best of luck to them in their game against Cardiff this weekend.
Big game, a massive game.
No games for us this past weekend because we were obviously in the international break. However, we had a chance to go down and watch Bears v Bath at the Rec, didn't we?
Yeah, I've never been to the Rec before. It's smaller than I thought it was going to be. I'll tell you that for free. But big game. The boys came out on top, didn't they? 15-13.
Yeah, very scrappy game. We were on Jake Heenan's guest list, weren't we?
Well, you were. You and Jimbo were. Me and Steve were in cooler seats, I think.
The Habu seats,
we were in Habu seats, yeah.
Massive shout out to Jake Heenan for hooking us up. Big Flyers fan, Jake Heenan. He's been down to a few games this season at SGS.
You actually might see him this Sunday on the court side, I think.
Is he?
Yeah, maybe rumour has it, a bit of AJ McGinty as well. Who knows?
Oh, awesome.
Maybe, but if you see him, leave them be. They're having a nice time, aren't they?
Watch this space. We'll have to get on the Flyers podcast at some point as well. Big Flyers fan. Little Bears Flyers crossover.
I know we've said it before, but they do have a hoop up at the HPC that we should get a little competition going.
They do like to shoot some free throws on their sort of lunch breaks, don't they? I've seen that doing the rounds on social media.
Nice.
Watch this space. Before we introduce this week's guest, just a quick reminder, if you are enjoying the podcast, to please leave us a rating and a review. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, we're here every single Wednesday. Every review we receive, we read them out on air. No reviews this week, but we did get a great comment on YouTube following last week's UE-themed episode. This one came through from Reese Farrell, and simply, obviously, we were doing our episode down at UE for their first round playoff game. Reese Farrell is a former player who played for UE, and he commented on the episode, so shout out Reese. He said, "Love this episode. You mentioned about Joel's media for UE. I'm not sure if he did them back then, but I remember watching the YouTube game highlights, which is what sold me on going to UE back in 2016. I had a good 3 years on the first team, and seeing how far it has come is crazy to see, and seeing other alumni is always fun."
He is an unbelievable player, by the way. He plays for Hurricanes now, like a National League team and also Weber team, and putting up some good numbers. Does he play? No, he plays for Hurricanes, doesn't he? He doesn't play Flyers.
Or either Gloucester.
It's one of them.
But it's great for him to engage. If you are enjoying it, do engage in the comments section as well on YouTube. But obviously, I think that would have been me back then doing the highlights for UE. Probably around 20. I think I graduated 2013, 14, 15.
Joel's a humble man, but definitely that was you doing that, mate. And they were great videos. And that's the reason he came, man. That's the reason probably many others have come. What up, mate?
There we go. It's always good. Right, time for us to introduce this week's guest. And this is a man who needs no introduction whatsoever. We are joined by none other than Bristol Flyers head coach Andreas Kapoulas. Andreas, how's it going?
Hello, guys. How you doing? Thank you for having me.
First time here for you in the podcast studio. Had you on the podcast before, but first time here in the new digs. What do you reckon?
I really like the surroundings. Like, you guys have upgraded for sure since the last podcast we did.
The last one was in the next door room, and it was us three with Nick in the room as well, just sat in a circle, sort of just talking, and it was very different to this, wasn't it?
Very much so.
Yeah, we were sat in the press room, weren't we? Yeah, it's amazing. And doing our end of season review. Now we're upgrading here in the studio. How things have changed. Coach, we were just talking about last night's Man City game against Bristol City. Were you down in attendance? Any of the players come down last night?
I think a couple of the players, I think Nick was also here as well watching the game, and Mike. I was following it on social media. I was watching actually on ITV a little bit, so a good opportunity kind of thing for everyone to have a little bit of an evening off. We had practice a little bit earlier kind of thing, so I think I think it was a competitive game, as you guys said. At the end, I think Man City just saw their class and just ran away with it, really.
Yeah. Well, thanks for taking time out of your super busy schedule. I know your super busy schedule at the moment. 2 big games coming up this weekend. At the time of recording the podcast right now, Flyers are 18-7 in league play, second in the league table. What have you just made of the season so far? I mean, it's certainly beating all expectations so far.
Well, it has been fun, right? I think it has been great. And the thing is, we're second right now, but we want to be there at the end of the regular season. That's our focus. So we've enjoyed it, everything so far through the ups and downs, and we're just looking forward to finishing the job. We want to have 11 games remaining. We want to finish as strong as possible.
Yeah, I know obviously going into the season there were those pre-season rankings that came out. Everyone put Flyers finishing bottom, but what kind of going into the season, the players having that being made low in the rankings, how much inspiration has that given you guys out on the court to put results together and almost prove the doubters wrong this year? Yeah,
I think for us certainly that was extra motivation, and obviously I think you've talked about it in previous podcasts how the players have it on the players group conversation, and I think certainly it was something that kind of gave us the extra inspiration, if you want to say it. But bottom line is we have a group of competitive players, and when we put the team together, we didn't think we were a team that we're going to be scrapping at the end, at the bottom of the table. We thought we were going to be very competitive, and that's what we've done basically. And that's long gone now. That motivation earlier on in the season for us now is taking it a game at a time and finish off the job and try to make a playoff run.
One thing we've noticed on online this year is you've been taking the team out for many meals this season. Probably a few more meals than we've done in previous seasons. Has that maybe been the secret for some of the success? All those free team meals, bit motivation for the guys?
I think last year's team we were taking them out for quite a lot of meals as well. I think certainly I think they've hit some half-court shots. Some of them some very well-deserved performances over the weekend. We've just been enjoying different places, a chicken Nando's every now and then. Pepeneros, it's always great place to have lunch, and it's nearby us, and just different type of spots basically. And I think that has definitely fueled the guys. I think they wanted lunch today. I think Tevin asked me, "I will go to Nando's today, coach?" And I was like, "Oh, let's see after the weekend basically where we're gonna go."
Because that's the rule, isn't it? When you do the half-court shots, one player shoots a half-court shot after, is it every practice or once a week someone shoots a half-court shot?
It just varies. Sometimes we might do it after every practice. Maybe we'll be if we've done it for a little bit too long, maybe we just give it a little bit miss. I think there's always guys as practice finishing. When I say wrap it up, fellas, I think some guys are moving towards the halfway line, just kind of thinking I'm going to say, okay, this is Fernando's or something like that, or 5 extra wings or whatever kind of thing. Some low and slow maybe. So low and slow is a popular one as well. So I should have mentioned them as well.
I know you've got Cow and Sal coming up soon as well. That's right. I went there fairly recently with my lovely wife, and you are in for a treat. It is. Have you been before?
I haven't been before, so but I know we're looking forward. I think it's next Wednesday actually. So I've kind of mentioned it to the guys. Basically, I'm sure they're looking forward to next week's schedule.
Very good stuff. Obviously, this past weekend was a weekend off for the BBL team because it was international window. Obviously, Coach, you weren't part of the recent window because you had family commitments this past weekend, right?
Yeah, I had to go a very short trip. Just to visit family basically, but we've been training, preparing. Being with the national team is always an honor, so it's always difficult not to be there, but family comes first, and it gave me an opportunity to spend a little bit more time with the team than I would usually do as well, so that was really good. But obviously it was great to see Jelani playing the games. I was able to watch both games, and I think even though the results were tough for the team, it was always going to be a very difficult window, but the experience the players gain, and especially young players like Jelani, I think it's invaluable.
I love that you've because as much as he's amazing and playing well, like, you have to give him the chance and the opportunity, and he proved himself or whatever. But you've been, I imagine, a vital part of that call-up. He has been unbelievable this year, but he was a bit of a hidden gem, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think he went a little bit under the radar maybe in the summer. He's a really good player, and I think he chose the route to go to Division 2. Some players choose the Division 1 route. I think for him, Division 2 was very good because he was able to get a lot of court time and work on his craft, and I think that was very important. And I think, full credit to him. He's put the work. He obviously has the talent, but I've talked about him before. He's a student of the game. He spends a lot of time watching video. We spend time breaking down film, and he's a hard worker. He stays behind and gets plenty of shots. All our guys are, and I think it's no surprise the performances that he's put in. He has high expectations of himself, and whenever he reaches maybe a certain level of expectation, then he wants to surpass it, and I think that's his attitude about it. So it's fully well deserved. It's a great honor to be involved in the national team, and him to get his first 2 caps against clubs like Belgium and Serbia. And that experience of playing in Serbia with 15,000 people watching the game, and Serbia had to win the game to go through to the World Cup. So it's quite high stakes game for them basically. And I thought GB did a great job to stay with them. I think you could see the Serbia talent and level of ability, I think, when they started running away with the game towards the end of the third quarter. But I think it's an incredible opportunity and experience for Jelani, and now he knows the things that he has to work. There's a process for him, and he knows that, and it comes down to him. It's certainly an honor for the club, and we're all very proud of what he has achieved, and there's a lot more to come from him.
Well, we've got you on the podcast this week so we can sort of learn the other side of Coach K. We all see the side of Coach on the court, really straight business on the court. Everyone sees locked in on game day, but we want to learn more about Coach K off the court, and we've got some cool features coming up on this week's episode to sort of peel back the layers of Coach Kapoulas. I know. We always say, when it comes to basketball, and you'd always say it too, basketball never sleeps. Just had the weekend off last weekend with no games. But what sort of things are you doing away from the court to kind of unwind from basketball? When you're not on the court, how are you relaxing away from basketball?
I'm watching more basketball, so I enjoy watching games. I watch the EuroLeague quite a lot, so watch some games from the Greek Championships. Obviously, basketball is part of everyday life, but spending time with family, spending time with Ursula, my wife, and Ruby, our dog. I think for me that's the relaxation time. Whenever I have the opportunity, I want to go for walks with them, and just quality time, going out for dinner, cinema. Whatever it is, really, just family is very important. Obviously, my family is back in Greece. Ursula's family is in Poland, so we're not able to see them as often as possible. So whenever we get an opportunity to go there, we will do so. But yeah, it's just kind of it's so intense when you're on the court. When you're in the grind of the season and everything. So every opportunity you have to go home, relax, go for a walk, go for a nice meal. And Ruby, she's 2 years now, so she's old. We've had her from a very young puppy, so she keeps me relaxed, entertaining, kind of thing. It's very calming. You have a not so good practice perhaps, kind of thing, or maybe a game that hasn't gone the way that we would like to go, and you go home and she's wigging her tail and she's ready to get some cuddles and just have some fun. So I think that's always very comforting.
We're waiting for the game where Coach adds Ruby onto the coaching staff and just pops her on the chair next to Coach Burns and Coach Bourne. What do you reckon, Coach? Would Ruby make a good coach out there on the court as well, just sitting there and watching the game?
Yeah, I think it would be entertaining. We've never thought about bringing her to a game, actually. It would be very interesting to see her reaction. But she's awesome. I've never had a dog before. My wife had dogs before, so she knew a little bit what to expect, but I don't think we knew what we were taking on. It was intense. Those first 4 to 6 months, I mean, we were like, wow, this is full on. But now, you know, we're used to the lifestyle and everything, and actually it's very good. Like in the mornings, usually I take her out. In the evening, sometimes with my wife. Sometimes my wife will take her out, and it's just very calming. Actually, in the morning it helps me getting up. Like usually I'm the one that she kind of comes over and she goes, I'm ready to go out, kind of thing. So she wakes me up. I don't need alarms anymore or anything. She's my alarm. So and off we go, and it's quite a very nice way to start the day actually.
Well, I think for anyone, dog or not, like up in the morning, out for a walk is probably a good way to clear your head, right?
Yeah, 100%. You think a little bit. I mean, obviously you're spending time with Ruby as well, but at the same time, it gives you an opportunity a little bit to think, okay, what do I need to do today? Clear the mind, and just kind of, irrespective of what the day before was, you're just ready to attack the day and just have a good one.
You talk about unwinding often on the bus. I travel with the guys for pretty much every away game this season. On the bus, particularly on the way home from games, often see you with your laptop open. Are you watching things on Netflix right now, Amazon Prime? What do you go to right now?
Yeah, like when we're on the bus, probably I'm preparing for the next game. But I do watch a lot of Netflix and Disney Plus and Amazon. I mean, a lot of. I was watching on Netflix. The last thing we watched was You.
That's weird,
that's weird. I like it because every season just has a bit of slightly different storyline and things. I think the last season is a little bit more Agatha Christie type of style season kind of thing. So really enjoy that. Disney Plus, we started watching How I Met Your Mother, like with my wife. So every evening, like while we're having dinner, we're just catching up, and we watched the whole. We didn't realize how many seasons were there, how many episodes, and it's really good. I mean, like Friends is up there for me, but like, you know, How I Met Your Mother, I think, is up there as well. So we watch every night, like 1 or 2 episodes, like over dinner kind of thing.
3 or 4 or 5.
Well, you know, Barney Stinson is legendary. Yeah. So.
It's one of those ones, isn't
Wait for it.
Wait for it.
It's one of those ones, isn't it, where you watch some episodes and all of a sudden it says, "Are you still watching?" You're like, "Yep, I'm still watching." Please go away. No, it's awesome. Coach, this is season number 18 for you as Bristol Flyers head coach. Your 9th season in the BBL. We were just talking off air, and you were saying 9 seasons in the BBL is more seasons than you've had going through the lower leagues as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's as many seasons as we had in lower leagues. I mean, it has been quite the journey. I mean, you think back of it, 18 years. It's quite a long time, actually. But I think what's really good is, even though it has been 8 years, I'm as excited as it was that first year. I mean, I always say to people, when we first started with the Flyers, I remember the first meeting I had with Nick at the Globe in Bath, outside of Bath, and we just met, and I said, Nick, you know, I've been asked to coach the team. We're starting in Division 3. We have high aspirations. You know, we want to see if we can get promoted and keep on kind of going through our leagues. And you know, you look back 18 years, we're still together. And we're at the highest level, second in the league table. It's amazing, right?
You started. I did not know you started in Division 3.
Yeah.
Right from the very start. Yeah,
that is and so you must have been doing something alongside being a coach at that point. Or
yeah.
not?
So just to give a bit of background, I suppose, to it. Like I was at the University of Bath. I was studying there. And I was coaching Team Bath Romans. I was assistant coach for the Bath Romans with Dave Roper, who was the head coach at the time. Danny James, who was playing for Team Bath Romans for a little while, started the academy at Filton College, that is now SGS. So Danny was coaching the men's team there for a year, and I joined him as an assistant coach at the academy. And then the following year, Danny said, "How about you coach the Division 3 team?" And come over in a full-time capacity with the college academy program. And I was like, it sounded a very exciting opportunity. So I jumped on board, and first year we had a lot of success. We won the league, we won the playoffs, and we got promoted to Division 2, and that's where it all started.
No way. That is. And then how was Division 2? How many years were you in Division 2 for?
1 year. So that year, I believe we finished second, I think, in the league, and we got promoted to Division 1. Then we had 7 years in Division 1. And then in 14-15, we went to the BBL. And the rest is history.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it, how far the club, I mean, like, I remember when I first joined SGS and Danny James was, part of the academy setup, and you were coaching the Div 1 team at the time. I actually saw Danny James at a Flyers game last week. I think it was, he came down to watch the game. So, great for, him to still sort of be supporting from afar, just to see how far it's all come since back in those days. It's crazy.
Certainly. I mean, Danny kind of started once the Team Bath Romans were called Bristol Mobbers before, and Bristol Mobbers moved to Bath with Dave Roper, and they became the Team Bath Romans, and there was no men's basketball in National League after that. And Danny coming back to Bristol, he started working with the Bristol Bombers junior program, and then obviously the Filton College Academy and developing things there. So really, everything started. Danny put a lot of work to get things going, basically, and to see him still involved and coming to our games, I think is great. Because he was the first person that got everything going back in Bristol, which was great.
How
it's cool.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's really cool.
Did you know that? You won't know this. Back in the day, I'm from Taunton, and I came up to a Div 1 game and sat on the bench against you one of those years ago. Got about 3 minutes, I think. That was about it. But yeah, that was against you.
All right.
I think you won, actually. Yeah, shame.
Who would have been on your team then? Who did you have on your team?
So at that time, it would have been. Do you remember there was weirdly a year where the Taunton Tigers had an American coach come in? His name was like Tom Kapoulas or something. Do you remember him?
Yeah, I remember Tom, yeah.
So that was that. It was around that time. Birdie, Alistair Bird.
Yeah, Alistair Bird, yeah.
Yabsley, I think.
Yeah, Paul Yabsley.
It might not have been the twins at that point. They might have been around that point. But Joe Mills.
Yeah.
Another
Very
Joe.
good shooter.
Yeah, great shoot, wasn't it? Oh, Josh Saunders? Joe Saunders.
Yes.
Long range shooter,
yeah.
him. A few of those. I can't really remember many others, but that was at that time.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, I mean, we had some great games with Taunton. I mean, we were together in Division 3. I remember we beat them in Taunton, and then we had to win the game to win the league, if I remember correctly. And I think we were down 12 points at halftime or something like that. We had to make a major comeback in the second half for us to be crowned champions. So
that's so cool.
We had some awesome battles over the years, basically.
It's probably good because you guys were quite close in terms of like geography. So it's nice that you had at that point two good teams that were sort of battling out as well. That probably pushed each other a bit as well.
Yeah, for sure, and a bit of Southwest rivalry, if you want to call it that. And Taunton had a great junior program doing a lot of great work. It was a shame to see the men's program not carrying on. Because they were doing such a great job, and you mentioned some of those names. Those guys had come through the junior program, playing all the way to the senior team. So there was always a lot of respect for them, and obviously there was a rivalry on the court, and most of the times we came on the winning side, which is always great. but plenty of respect for what they were doing there and what they're doing right now. The academy is there, Richard Hughes, and they're developing the program. So huge respect to them.
Some of those boys actually come up and watch the Flyers semi-regularly as well.
Really?
Yeah, some of the Gary Carter and Matt, they come up and watch it. So yeah, it's cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. So many good memories over the sort of 18 years, that you've been involved with the Flyers as well. And you look at where the club's going in potentially the next couple of years. If we can get into that arena in the next 2 years, you could be celebrating 20 years in that first year in the new venue.
That would be awesome, right? I think the thing is, obviously years go by. And as you say, there's so many amazing memories and so many players that have played for the club and so many milestones that the club has achieved. And to be hopefully 2 years away from a 4,000 seat venue, hopefully a little bit bigger maybe. I think they're still working on it. But it will be an amazing 20-year anniversary, I think. But most importantly, I think it's the next step of the evolution of the program, really.
Yeah, awesome stuff. Well, we should get to our quick fire question segment because we could literally talk to Coach all day here. But we will get to our quick fire question segment now. Coach, we don't take ourselves too seriously here on the podcast. Every guest we have on the pod, we usually do a series of rapid fire questions just to get to know a bit more about our guests. We have 30 seconds we put on the clock. You have to answer as many questions as you can in that 30 seconds. Sam, do you have your soundboard at the ready?
I do.
Play that sound.
Ooh.
Don't get nervous.
I believe the winner so far is with 11 answers, and we just need the speediest answers you can do, okay?
Who is that? Mike Miller?
Was it Miller?
I think it is Mike.
Okay,
Mike
let's
leads
do
the
this.
way with 11.
Let's do this.
So, right, we will put 30 seconds on the clock. Your time starts now. What's your favourite sports movie of all time?
Coach Carter.
Who's the one player that's most likely to turn up late to practice?
Coach has said a swear word, but we'll bleep it on the podcast. Who's turning up late to practice?
Leslie and Jelani.
Who's the funniest guy on the team?
Brandon.
What actor would you play in a film about your would you like to play you in a film about your life?
Tom Cruise.
What's your go-to karaoke song?
Come fly with me.
Are you a morning person or an evening person?
Morning.
Favourite away arena to coach in?
Leicester.
If you weren't a basketball coach, what would you be?
Economist.
What would the score be in a one-on-one between you and Nick Burns?
3-2.
Coach is taking it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Just short of Mike Miller's. Give us a clap. The producer Dan's giving him a round of applause.
I like that.
He threw me off the whole who's late in practice. I think I ashamed Leslie and Jelani, but I don't know if that was accurate. But anyway.
Are they rocking up? Are they usually rocking up last through the door? Are they for
No,
practice?
it was a tough fairness. We don't have a lot of guys turning up late. I think actually Mike and TB might be up there actually. So I think Leslie and Jelani are actually all right. But anyway, but all the guys are turning up on time, so we never have to deal with that issue. So.
There we go.
Everyone says, and you said just then, Brandon's the funniest. So I find it hard to still understand sometimes what Brandon's saying, Coach. Surely you've been with him long enough now. You know what's going on, right?
He doesn't say a lot, but when he says something, it is funny.
We did have him on the podcast a few weeks back, and I can confirm it was a fun episode, wasn't it?
Great episode. And then it's not even the word, it's the sayings he's got from like where he's from. I'm like, I don't know. I know what words you've just said, but I don't know what they mean.
I go have a listen if you haven't listened back to that episode, by the way. It was a great episode with Malcolm as our little roommates feature.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, it's really good fun. Sam, right, time for us to get to this week's news.
This is the Bristol Flyers Podcast.
Time to take a look at what's been going on around British basketball this week, and we did kind of briefly speak about it before, but of course Jelani Watson Gayle had his first 2 GB caps at the weekend. They of course hosted Belgium on Friday in his first game, and his very first start as well. I mean, going straight into the starting lineup for that game, that's massive.
I mean, I'm not surprised. I look at him; he is confident. He shoots well, makes good decisions. I was hoping he would. I wasn't certain he would, but I wasn't too surprised that he was there and starting.
Yeah, well, it was a sort of a rocky first game though. He had 2 points in 3 assists in 23 minutes. GB fell short, 59 points to 88. On Monday, they travelled to Belgrade. They took on Serbia, of course, a must-win game for them in their World Cup qualifying campaign. They fell short 101 to 83, but Jelani Watson Gayle was 7 points, 2 rebounds in 14 minutes. So really starting to find his feet in the team. And Coach, could you sense that from the first game to the second game, him really starting to sort of fit in? It must be quite tricky, a lot of players around the team that not necessarily played with week in, week out, and just sort of getting thrown into that environment.
Yeah, I mean, it's a new environment, as you say, and just kind of building that connection with the rest of the players. A lot of new players as well. It was a fairly young team as well. But certainly, I think he got a little bit frustrated maybe in our first game. He missed a few shots. But I think he picked it up for Serbia, and overall, it was a great experience for him.
What's the main difference that they have to look out for when they're playing BBL versus playing in a European sort of setup?
Well, I think like the BBL game is very up-tempo, and I think the European game is more methodical. It's more structure. It becomes more tactical, and also you got to deal with the physical side of things. Like Serbia had guys playing the 2 spot at 6'7". So there's some great length there, some athletic ability, some unbelievable skill. So everything is a higher level basically, as you would expect to get at that kind of situation.
Yeah, and that's obviously it's a massive achievement for him to receive his first 2 caps. But how big an achievement is it for the club as well? Because having a player come in, they haven't played in the GB as a senior before, but getting the call up into the team off the back of those performances that they've had with the Flyers. How big is that for the club?
Well, we're very proud of him. It's a great honor to have a player in the national team program. And I said, obviously, Jelani, it comes down to his hard work, and it's full credit to him. And I think for our program, it just kind of shows that players can come here, develop their game, and kind of go on to bigger things. And certainly Jelani coming here in his very short time with the club, performing very well on the court and getting the call-up, which was fully well-deserved.
Well, and we talked about it. I can't remember the exact numbers, but we had so many players in that 24-man squad who were from the BBL. What was it, 12? 10?
Yeah, I think it was 10 of the 24 were playing BBL, and I think there was another high percentage of guys that in the final squad were playing domestically in the league as well. So it sort of shows how the league's growing as well.
Oh, for sure. Just to add to that, I mean, you will not have that experience. You will see most of the teams in the past, like they will have a lot of players from outside of GB, kind of the UK. So I think to have so many players selecting that list of 24 shows how far the league has come as well.
Yeah, I mean the future of the program really was on show, wasn't it, during the during that last window? I know the games didn't mean anything because they couldn't necessarily qualify, but huge experience for all the young players. And I know the GB program's sort of going through a review process, sort of going forward, and you've been a big part of it, sort of going, in the build up to this latest window. What does the future look like for the GB program now, sort of moving forward? Do you hope after this review?
Well, I'm hoping promising. The last 3 years being involved with Mark Stuto on 8th ranking and making it to the Eurobasket, I think that was an incredible experience in the summer. And even though we haven't qualified for the World Cup right now, we have an opportunity to look ahead and not just kind of plan on a year basis. We've got to look ahead for the next 4 years and work on the program. And it's great to see the women's team making to the Eurobasket for this summer, which is going to be really exciting. And certainly, I think the league is growing here domestically. Basketball is getting bigger, and I think the national team, we've got to have representation at Eurobaskets and why not be in World Cup and Olympic Games, really. So there's work to be done, obviously. But the talent is there, and we just got to put the program behind to support these guys. And just to touch on it, like there's guys like Carl Whittle, who I coach with the England under-16s, and to see Carl being captain for this window, and he has gone through all the different age groups, and I think that's great to see for the GB program. A lot of players coming through that have been part of the junior teams as well. So the talent is there. There's plenty of work to do, obviously, but I would like to think once this review takes place, the future is going to be bright.
What's the key to bringing back some of these players that are? You mentioned Carl Wheatle, for example, currently playing his trade overseas. What's the key in terms of bringing more of these GB players back to play domestically in the BBL moving forwards?
Well, I think the league is growing, and I think we've already seen a wave of players returning to the BBL, and certainly London Lions playing in Eurocup. I think that has really helped, and hopefully more teams playing in European competition sooner rather than later. That will help as well, get more GB players coming back. I think we just got to continue to take steps forward as a league, and the clubs have to make sure also are growing, and also let's be realistic, finances as well play a role to it. So there's some very competitive salaries in Europe, in Asia. And the league has to be able to compete with that, to be able to bring those players back, and it's not going to happen overnight, but I think it's great to see more and more come back. The league is really competitive. I think our league is probably a little bit underrated kind of thing, just in terms of how it goes with other top European leagues, and I think a lot of players finding that the league is extremely competitive, and I think we want to see that trend continue with more players returning.
Yeah.
Well, a couple of great games. If you want to check out the highlights, you can check them out on YouTube. And one thing to look out for, there's a tasty Jelani alley-oop to Josh Sharma, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Which was,
right off the bat, wasn't it? First, right off the bat. And welcome to GB. Here you go. Nice, tasty little dish up there to you.
Love
it was
that.
Awesome. Yeah, it was great to see. Coach, obviously you mentioned about the BBL and how that's moving forward as well. Obviously, new investment into the league very recently, and we sort of been privy to some of the conversations that are going on behind the scenes. Aaron Radin's invited us to things like the town hall to sort of share his plans moving forward for the league. Such a great place for the league to be in right now, and you look ahead to the future, how bright that is.
Yes, I think it's a great time. I think you see a lot of clubs having their own facilities. Sheffield next season, Caledonia will have their own facility as well next season. We're going to have it in 2 years' time. Obviously, Aaron has come in and he has a very ambitious plan to deliver over the next 5 years and strategy. I think it's a great time for basketball. I think in the UK, this is a great opportunity to make it work. It's not going to happen overnight, obviously we know, but the UK has always been a sleeping giant, if you want, and there's a growing market here. And it's great to see. I mentioned London Lions before, to see them in Eurocup being through to the playoffs. Because they're showing that British basketball can be competitive in European competitions, and it hasn't been for the last 20 years. And certainly we want London Lions to be as successful as possible, because they're kind of showing that British teams can be successful. And certainly investment plays a part of it. 777 have a lot of ambitions, and they've seen the potential of this league. And now we have to work, all of us have to work really hard. It's not just Aaron. I think it's the league, the clubs. We all have to work hard over the next 2 to 5 years to make our league a top European league.
Yeah. Well, fingers crossed we'll see some teams in the BBL competing on that European stage in the not too distant future. Other news around the league in our new segment, we've got player transactions. Now, the signing deadline is now slammed shut. Teams can no longer sign players for the rest of this season, not until after the playoffs, when players can sign with clubs. There's been a number of last-minute deadline day-ish or around deadline day-ish signings. Cheshire Phoenix, they announced that Michael Ocherobia has departed the club. He's joined a team in the Basketball Africa League. Tough one for them to take just before the signing deadline. They haven't announced a replacement at the moment, but obviously they may have already signed a player or a replacement, but just not announced it yet. Who knows? So
we still might get a few Joel's, whatever we called it before.
What, those late signing announcements on game day?
But what did we do? I can't remember.
The rant of the week. Yeah, we all know how much I love a late signing announcement. What, I'm keen to get your thoughts on that, sort of, coach, in terms of when a team announces a player so late in the day. We sometimes have seen teams this season announcing players just before tip-off.
Yeah, I don't think it's a great look for the league, really. I mean, from a coaching standpoint, we usually find out before those players are announced anyway, rumors, whatever kind of thing, agent rumors, so we can pick it up. I think there has to be some form of standard there where, 24 hours before or whatever the timeline is that the player is being announced. I don't think it looks very good, especially sometimes when a game is about to tip off and a player has just been announced, basically. I don't think that's a very good look in our league. I think you've ranted about that, haven't you?
Yeah, you can definitely listen to previous episodes. It's not rant, it's constructive criticism. We're all trying to work together here. Yeah, the rant of the week. Yeah, it's constructive criticism. We're all trying to grow the league here.
Yeah. I get it. Yeah.
Other news around the league: Surrey Scorchers. They've added American point guard Josh McFoley to bolster their roster for the rest of the season. He played pro in both Slovakia and Finland last season. He averaged 16.5 points a game in Slovakia. He played 4 games in Finland and averaged 29 points per game in those 4 games.
Ooh, he's a bit of a player then, is he, Joel?
Well, fingers crossed. Obviously, they need to sort of turn some results around pretty quickly if they want to work their way into the playoff positions. But he does replace Jalen Ray, who was out for the season, and they've just had some injury problems left, right and centre. It's been a really difficult season for Surrey this year. So fingers crossed he'll bring them some changed fortunes. Plymouth City Patriots. Mark-Edric Bell has left the club due to personal reasons. He's been replaced by American forward Ralph Basanthe. He joins from Sweden, and that's all of our player transactions. All those little last-minute signings, or everything going on.
We might see a few just before the this weekend, Joel, if they're going to play. Like we said, not been signed yet.
Well, who knows? It's an interesting fact here for you. I think it works out, Coach, that Flyers are the only club this season not to have made a mid-season change this year. It's the sort of the market. I guess it's been tough with some teams picking up injury problems, but how difficult is it that trying to recruit a player mid-season?
Well, it's something that teams sometimes have to come across. It's always difficult finding the right fit and then gelling with the team. It's something that we don't do too often. We had to do in cases where we had an injury. And I think that has helped us, actually. We haven't had any changes in our roster, any new guys, and we've been able to go about our work.
Yeah, you talk about like we've been very lucky as well with injury, but a big part of that has been down to the new structure in the medical team this season as well. And obviously, Craig and we brought Karras in as well. We've got Dr. Jonathan now. Just talk us through some of those changes and what kind of impact they've had on the Flyers team this year.
Yeah, I think our program over the years has enhanced, and Craig Barden has done a fantastic job looking after the medical side. And in the past, we had Craig Riemann, who was looking at strength and conditioning. The last couple of years, we have Rich Clark, who has taken over, and he's doing an awesome job, picking up from where Craig had left off. Craig has been with us throughout, and his experience is invaluable. And we just felt we needed to support that side more, and we brought Karras, and he has been really great to have her, because when Craig is not available, she can be there in some of the away games that Craig cannot make. He usually does the home games. But that side of it is very important, looking after the players. And both Rich, Craig, we spend a lot of time in our little performance group that we have in terms of looking at the loading, the weekly loading and the chronic loading, and just making sure we have our guys fit and healthy for the season. And that's very important. Staying healthy is part of that. They've had teams that had a lot of injuries, and we've picked up some as well, and hopefully we can stay as healthy as possible moving forward for the remaining months of the season. But things happen. Injuries, are kind of part of kind of the process really that you're going through in a season.
Is it really hard to know when just to say it's time to push through, or other times, but actually we need to calm it down? Is it hard to know that, or is that?
No, I think loading wise, you develop a feel for it, and when, especially if we had a tough schedule, when we've got to kind of take things down a little bit in practice. But we follow, we track our loading throughout the course of the season. And we just manage the week accordingly, really. And the strength and conditioning sessions that the players do are very important. And certainly, from our point of view, is we've got to have fresh legs and fresh minds going into the postseason, so and finishing the season strong. So for us, is not just starting strong or having a good middle part of the season. You got to make sure you have your guys healthy for 8-9 months. That's what successful teams are able to do.
Are you thinking, so you got double header this weekend, which you do, that on the Friday, say you're up by, 20 points, you're into the last quarter, are you thinking not about the game on Sunday, but like from a load perspective, the game on Sunday? So, okay, we need certain guys, we want to make sure we rotate well and all the rest of it, just to make sure that for Sunday we're going to have our best performance as well.
Yeah, I think that kind of plays a part of it. We try to take it game by game, and really for us, we want to win the game. And if it means a particular player will have to play a little bit more, we will do so, and we might have some consideration for the next game. Maybe he will not get as many minutes early in the game, perhaps. But we have the depth this year, and I think our depth has been greater than we've had in the past, and that's really helped. And I think you can see it in practices, but you can see it in the games. And I think different guys will step up at different moments. So I think that's probably working a little bit in our favor in that regard, that we don't have to have guys out there playing full 40 minutes. There are some guys that will play above 30 minutes, but there are some guys that are playing, sometimes 20 minutes. And when we need to call upon them, they will play more. So, yeah, certainly that's part of the process as well.
Yeah. As Sam said, there's a big doubleheader this weekend. We're actually travelling up tomorrow, aren't we, for the game on Friday up in Newcastle. How much of a difference does that make for you and a team in terms of, those big long journeys up to Newcastle, doing the overnight before and being able to come in with sort of without the bus legs, to say? And
again, finances play a role to it, but certainly I think we have found it difficult to travel on the day and play those type of games. The first away game of the season was against Newcastle, and we did it on the same day. And our first half was not particularly good. We lost that game. That was our first loss of the season. And with Glasgow, with Caledonia, we decided to take a different route and travel the day before. And that worked in our favour. And certainly we're following the same thing with Newcastle. But again, it has to do with finances as well. But at the same time, it's the welfare, and we need to manage people's bodies and stuff. Traveling for 7 hours and then, have to go play a game. That's not an easy thing to do. But we have done that in the past, and we have been successful winning games as well. It's something that a lot of teams in the BBL would do. But certainly the ideal scenario is to travel the day before, give yourself a little bit of time, get a good night's sleep. There are some games though at the same time, like I would say, sleeping in your own bed. counts for a lot of things. So I think for certain games, if we're traveling 3 or 4 hours, I actually think sleeping on your own bed, getting a good night's sleep, and then you know that you have that trip. It is what it is, basically. That matters quite a lot. Some people find it difficult to sleep in a hotel for one night, and also being around family kind of thing. If some players have family, coaches and stuff, that also plays a role. But for those games, I think like against Glasgow, it really helped us, and hopefully will help us on Friday as well.
So I've done a bit of maths coming into this weekend. Obviously, we're currently second in the league. A win on Friday, Coach, I don't know if you've spoken about this in practice at all, but a win on Friday would clinch a playoff space. It would be the earliest we've ever clinched a place in the BBL playoffs in our BBL era.
I'm going to caveat before you answer, Coach, but he did check with Dan Routledge, who
I did. Yep,
last
I did.
time you got it wrong, didn't you?
I don't know if you remember last season. I put out that we clinched playoffs, and there was like a 0.1% chance that we couldn't, and it would require an absolute disaster for it to happen. It was almost impossible. But he did correct us and say that actually there is like a 0.1 or something % chance. So I had to DM him first just to say, "Hi Dan, just double checking to avoid the same situation as last year. Am I right in thinking a win on Friday would clinch playoff spots?" And he goes, "Yep, it gives you the head-to-head." Also, I think the head-to-head, I think we're up by 5 right now on the head-to-head overall, he mentioned. So even if we lose by less than 5, we still get the head-to-head in that one as well. But is that something you speak about in terms of, you haven't spoken about it at all?
No, we haven't spoken about that at all. I think our goals are to finish as high as we can on the league table and make a run in the playoffs. So, records are to be broken. Certainly it will be another nice record to be broken. Obviously we won 7 games straight, most wins in a season with 18 so far. We're thinking ahead. We've got to take it one game at a time right now. And I'm not just saying it. This is not just coach talk. That's our mentality. It needs to be our mentality right now. We don't want to be saying, "Oh, it was great to be second in the league at the start of March." We want to be talking about things at the end of the season and playing for things at the end of the season.
Yeah.
Imagine. Yeah, we were second in the league at the beginning of March. We're amazing.
I don't know if you remember that COVID lockdown year. It reminds me of Glasgow saying they won the league in February when the league shut down or something like that. You don't want to be saying that, do you? Do you remember that?
They were so angry, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. Yeah, they were. That was good fun. BBL trolling.
Fancy being angry at a global pandemic, eh?
Just a reminder, you can watch both games this weekend on the BBL YouTube channel. Friday up in Newcastle, and Sunday down here at the Wise Campus against Manchester. And tickets once again are sold out for that game. And it's crazy, isn't it, how we've just sold out every single game now. I mean, Andreas, we talk about the appetite for basketball in Bristol. Last season around the playoff, there was a huge buzz at the back end of the season, and that's just continued into this year off the back of the team doing so well. Now to sell out every single game for the rest of the season, it just shows how keen everyone is to go out there and watch some Flyers hoops. Yeah,
we did the new venue. That's what it shows, basically. But also it shows how everyone is getting behind us. We have an exciting group of guys playing out there, like a fun brand of basketball, and everyone wants to experience it firsthand. So I think it's a great situation to be in, but also I think we look forward to having our venue, a bigger venue with the same atmosphere. What an amazing thing that would be.
Yeah, it certainly will be great, wouldn't it? That's everything in our news segment. So now you are up to date with this week's news.
This is the Bristol Flyers Podcast.
Right, one more thing to do before we get round to the mailbag. And of course, because we are in action on Sunday, it means the wheel can come back, the return of the wheel. So we are going to bring the wheel back into play. And Coach, if you're not familiar with our Word of the Week segment, we ask every guest to give us a word to put up on the wheel. We give it a spin, and whatever word it lands on, I have to try and squeeze into the commentary for that home game. So we've had some great words in the past. Last week's word was, or not last week, the week before, was tofu. Thanks to Matt Hardy for sending that one in.
It was so bad, Joel. You did a bad job.
It was really bad, yeah. But Coach, we want you to pick a word this week to put on our wheel, and I'll grab it right now. What do you reckon? What are you thinking?
Yeah, go on.
Well, let's go with a Greek word. Let's go efcharisto, which means...
We're going to have to learn how to spell this, Coach. Go on, what does it mean?
Efcharisto means thank you.
It means thank you. I like that. You're going to have to spell it, though.
Efcharisto.
Efcharisto, that's it.
Is there a weird roll? Not weird. Is there a roll in there?
Efcharisto, yeah.
Can't do it. Efcharisto.
Efcharisto. Right. How are we spelling this one, Coach?
Let's do it in like Efcharisto. So E-F... H A R I S T O. I mean, yeah, let's go with that one.
Evparisto. Thank you very much. In Greek.
Love that.
Right, Evparisto is up on the wheel. It is time for us to give this a spin. Whichever word it lands on will be this week's word of the week. Sam, are you ready for us to spin the wheel?
I am.
Here we go. Here we go. Oh. Indubitably.
Indubitably.
The word is indubitably, which was sent in by Thomas Bell, if you remember correctly.
TV. That was him, wasn't it?
Indubitably.
Indubitably.
Remember that Kawhi Leonard meme? I think I've already said indubitably. Have we ever said indubitably?
I don't know if you have. Has he? I don't think you have.
Well, the word indubitably is the word of the week for this week. I've got to try and squeeze it into the game against Manchester Giants.
Beautiful.
It's a 4 p.m. tip-off, and you can watch that for free on the BBL YouTube channel.
You're listening to the Bristol Flyers Podcast.
Right, time for us to wrap up this week's episode of the podcast with our mailbag. The mailbag is open. We ask fans to send in their questions, and we've got some great ones here to rattle through now.
Shall I start us off, Joel?
Yeah, let's hear it.
First one is from Sam Comley. Cider Sam, big fan of the Bristol Flyers and all the sports, I should say. On Twitter, he wants to know, Coach, if you could bring back any former Flyers player in their prime, who would you pick and why?
So many
Just
players.
one, Coach, okay?
We've got to go with Mr. Bristol, right? Greg Street.
Greg
in
Street.
His prime.
We said this
We did,
earlier.
yeah.
We knew you were going to pick Greg Street.
We did say this was coming, but I think that's a very solid choice. Prime Greg Street.
That man was unbelievable, wasn't it? How many years was he with you?
Quite a lot, actually. So from Division 2 all the way through to BBL, played 2 or 3 seasons. 3 seasons, I think.
Yeah.
3 seasons in the BBL. So quite a lot of years there, really.
Yeah, we'll have to see if we can get him on the podcast, maybe in the off-season or something like that. I did reach out to him the other week, actually. So it is on our radar. We'll see if we can get a Greg Street special themed episode of the podcast in the summer.
It was 11. Oh, right. Dan.
Producer Dan's come through for us.
11 years he was with you.
Years. Wow.
Flipping heck.
Yeah, that was a long time.
Yes.
Obviously, of course, we had testimonials over 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
Great shout, producer Dan. Cheers for that one, mate. Another question here. This one's from Matt Hardy. He says, the Flyers team has gelled incredibly well this year. What's the recruitment process like from season to season in the BBL?
Yeah, I think it varies. Like most BBL clubs go from year to year. You don't see a lot of, or you didn't used to see a lot of players being on 2-year contracts, for example, right? So at the end of the day, the basketball career is very short. It's like 10 years, 12 years maximum. So it comes. Some players will use the league and the clubs as a stepping stone to bigger European leagues. Some players will want to stay for a few more years. It's challenging. I think it's just building a core group. It's very important, and you want to strengthen. The reality is it's going to be always very difficult to keep everyone in a roster, and I think most BBL clubs will find that, but I think retaining your core always helps you for the following season, basically, and the more guys you can bring back, you can see teams that have had success like Leicester, they've been able to retain that group. But I think it's kind of a process that you've got to go through in the summer, and you want to, for us, I think it has been a great learning experience over the years. Myself, Nick, Chris, we talk about players, and certainly bringing back guys this year like Malcolm and Mike and Corey. That was very important for us. But then also identifying, guys that go under the radar, perhaps, like we talked about Jelani, I think, and also very talented guys like VJ King and all our American players that we have brought this year, bringing back guys like Leslie who have been in the club before and know the situation. So I think there is no a specific recipe. It's kind of something that you build over the years, and it has its challenges. A lot depends on finances at the end of the day. I think that's the reality of it. If you have big budget, then you can do a lot more in that regard. If you don't have as high of a budget, you got to maximize what you have. But I think it's also discovering talent and giving players an opportunity. Like one of the things for us is we've had some great players over the years, and some of them have stayed with us for more than a year, and some of us have moved on. And to see guys going to other European leagues, Greece, and we have a couple of players now, Eric Lockett, Justin Gray, to go in leagues like that and play at that level, it's great and speaks very highly of the club.
Yeah, you mentioned having that core of guys. I know there's still 2 months left of the regular season, but are you having those conversations now behind the scenes with the coaching staff, sort of behind closed doors, about how you kind of want the roster to look going into maybe next season and beyond?
Well, you always, it's natural to be thinking further ahead and preparing for the following season. And obviously for us, we know now there's a definitive timeline in terms of the new venue. So we want to be going in the new venue, just trying to win a domestic championship, playing in Europe. So we have high aspirations. So part of the overall pressures, we've got to look more than just short term. We've got to do the medium term, longer term plan. But at the same time, we want to stay in the moment. And it's very easy sometimes to get caught up thinking ahead and not focusing on what's important. What's important is Newcastle away on Friday. So certainly, there are things that we're preparing for next season, and I think there's going to be some exciting news over the weeks and months kind of thing, something for our fans to look forward to. We want to keep on moving forward as a club. We've been doing that over our 9 years in the BBL, and I've said it from day one, our goal is to win a BBL championship basically, but it's a process. It just doesn't happen overnight, and finances play part of it, and I think everyone is aware of it kind of thing as well. So but it's just about doing things the right way, and you've got to get results. Last year was a great year for us, finishing in the top 4. This year we're second, and we want to keep on progressing all the time on and off the court, and I think our club has done a great job at that.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
We also had quite an interesting question come through from Matt Hardy. He had a bit of a follow-up question. And he said, and this is a bit of a random one, he said, what other head coach in the BBL do you think you could beat in a one-on-one? And he's got a couple more follow-ups from that as well.
Man, there's some really good players out there. So there's some good defenders there kind of thing. There's a lot of guys kind of thing, like, I'll take on Lloyd.
Yeah?
Like, we're like obviously with Lloyd, we work together in national team. I'll take Lloyd or Mark, like Mark Stuto kind of thing. Like, we'll have a good game. I don't know if I'll beat them, but we'll have a good game anyway. So,
what were you like as a player before your coaching career? What was your kind of game like? How did you play?
I was okay. I was kind of, I was smart. I wasn't a great scorer necessarily. I was one of those guys that would play hard-nosed defense and just read the game and just facilitate and just making sure help the team operate in the right way. I think that was always, I was very team orientated always kind of thing, and I took a lot of pride on working hard and playing defense.
Yeah. Sam, do you want to go through this next question here?
Okay. Julian Largo. Massino, I missed that bit. Junior Largo Massino on Instagram wants to know, do you think we could ever see the Flyers competing in Europe one day? I know the answer. We all know the answer, don't we, Coach?
Yes, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Watch your space. Here's a question that might need a bit of explaining. This one's from Jo Edkins on Instagram, and she wants you to. She said, "Ask Andreas to rate his DIY skills 1 to 10."
That's a trick question. She knows. Well, I have to call her husband, Mike. Mike, our team manager, operations manager. He joined us this year full time. So I brought him over to help me out this summer with a couple of things. It's next to 0, I think, my skill. I need any help I can get. So, not very proud of those skills.
Note to self, don't let Coach K unpack any IKEA.
Well, I can do IKEA. Hey, okay, like we can do IKEA tables. I mean, like anyone can read instructions and put together a table. I'm talking more about drilling holes in the wall, and Mike had to come and fix a shelf. Like, my wife has been going on forever we have a spare room that we use as an office area, if you want to call it that. And we had this shelf that had been hanging off, and then there's a little hole and stuff. And Ursula has been saying, "Can you fix it?" And I was like I'm going to do a lousy job. So Mike came over. He sorted it out straight away, basically. So.
Team manager, coach manager. He doesn't it all, eh? I love it.
A little bit of everything. A little bit of everything.
Okay, we got another one here from Owen Parker on Instagram, who wants to know, what are the biggest barriers in growing basketball in Bristol?
Well, facility. I mean, facility is the biggest barrier, really. Having access. I mean, the junior program, we're using Bristol Met, Abbeywood School, and Wise has been incredible for us over the years. If we didn't have Wise, basketball would not be to the level where it is right now. The SGS program has done so much for the sport. So facility is the biggest barrier. We need a place that we can use 24 hours a day, really, and it could be training for the BBL team, for our community program, to be delivering camps and school activities, after school activities, and for our club. We want to continue. Our boys and girls program has done fantastic work, and Chris Bourne overseeing the program at SGS, and all the volunteers. We have an amazing group of volunteer coaches, team managers, and they do an incredible job. And really, the more facility that we have, the better for it will be. The appetite, we talked about the appetite coming to games, the appetite of young people wanting to play basketball. You can see, you had Rodney here talking about the community program and how much great demand there is for sessions. I think for us that's the biggest issue, really, having a facility that we can fill with basketball. And the reality is, in Europe you have junior teams training 4 or 5 times a week plus a game, and here just down to facility limitations, really, and it's expensive as well. That's the other thing. You can hire a court for an hour, you have to pay £45-50, which is a lot of money, really. And in Europe you don't experience that as much kind of thing in a country like Greece, and really our teams right now are training twice a week and play the game, and really we maximize the time, and our junior program has produced some great players like Greg Street, who's a great example, and Corey and Josh Rogers and all those guys, Corey Samuels, that have come through our program, and they have come down through that, and the academy has helped because they have been able to fill the extra hours that the players require. Bristol Met, they do a great job with their school program as well, so they give their players extra hours alongside our club hours as well. But the reality is, if you have a facility, it will allow our teams to train more, and players to get more basketball, really.
That facility one is such a big deal. I'm just in a local league team now. Our facility, unfortunately, has got some maintenance issues, so we're going to have to move very soon. And we have said we can do any slot, any day after normal work hours, and we cannot find another gym that will let us do anything. And it's just that's crazy, isn't it? Surely they'd bite your arm off for the extra money, but they just don't need it because they're just full up all the time. So I can't imagine what it's like when you've got all these programs you're trying to fit in as well. So
and then you have to have obviously enough coaches and team managers. So obviously finding people that and the reality, those roles don't pay. They're volunteers, and over the years we had some unbelievable people supporting us, and Mike Atkins has been one of those. And if I start naming people, I'll forget someone, so I don't want to go down that route. But the reality is, you need the facilities first, and then you can deal with the rest of the issues. But facilities is the main.
Yeah, and SGS has been unbelievable. I know we talk about the arena, and that's amazing, but we can't forget the 9-year or longer, 18 years we've had in that gym. Fills up now, and it hasn't the whole time, and they have been non-stop, and nothing but accommodating is what we've needed, hey?
Yeah. Well, I mean, without SGS, basketball in Bristol the last 20 years will not be what it is. Kevin Hamlin, who was the principal and now is the CEO at SGS, he believes in sport, and obviously the academy programs, there are so many different sports. But for basketball specifically, if it wasn't for SGS, I don't think we would definitely not have a BBL club. And all those great players that have come through the program, including Greg, they will not have had the same opportunities. So SGS has played a huge role in that, and certainly obviously having Bristol Sport to support it, and all the other programs that I talked about it, and Bristol Met are doing a great job at the under-16s level in terms of developing the academy. Everyone plays a part in it, and certainly SGS has been a key ingredient to the basketball success that we enjoyed in Bristol.
Yeah, 100%. No, I couldn't agree more. We have got one final question here, and Rafael Thomas Edwards has been in touch on Instagram. And of course, both of you share a birthday very upcoming soon, the 5th of March. You guys share the birthday. He's messaged to say, do you have any birthday wishes? Happy birthday to us both, he says.
well, happy birthday, Raf. So it's going to be a little bit different because the last couple of seasons I had a birthday party. I don't have my birthday party and stuff. So, but he's having a great season in Germany, coaching now. He's assistant coach in the Women's League in Germany, and I believe they're very close to winning the championship there. Nice. So he's having a great season. So shout out to Raf. Birthday wishes. Well, I think we all know what that is.
A BBL championship, please. Great stuff. Do you reckon are you still in touch with Raf? Are you still chatting quite often?
Yeah, we're talking. Like we exchange the occasional messages and stuff, reaching out and stuff. I think he's enjoying seeing our success. I know you spoke to Josh the other day when you guys were down at UE, and I mean those two guys have been incredible for us. And it's a shame that we don't have him with us this season. But they've been part of the success. Every group that we've had in the past has played the role for us to be in the position that we are right now, really. And we stay in touch. We talk. I think we exchanged messages the other day, actually. So this week. So we're gonna wish each other happy birthday, and we look forward to seeing each other soon.
Amazing.
Awesome. Great stuff. Well, I think that's a great place to wrap up this week's episode. Coach, thank you so much for spending some of your time with us. I know it's a super busy schedule. A very happy birthday for next week as well. And best of luck this weekend with the 2 games.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Sam, that's it for this week's episode. Another great episode of the podcast. What do you make of it?
I thought you were going to ask me if I've got anything else to add, John.
Well,
I was ready for it.
That was next on my list, mate. That was next on my list.
We always love getting Coach on. It's good to hear about the basketball side, but it's also nice to hear a bit about the other side of Coach as well. So I love that, Joel.
Yeah, hopefully you got a little bit of a taste of what Coach is like away from the court when you're not watching him in BBL action. But just a reminder, we are available on all major podcast providers and on YouTube every single Wednesday. Make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss another episode. Sam, anything else you want to add before we get this show on the road?
No.
Great stuff. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of the Bristol Flyers Podcast. We'll be back same time next week on the Flyers Podcast.